up, guys? Nick the Informative Fisherman on behalf of Lucky Tackle Box today. We're going to be breaking down a technique called spy baiting with the Duo Realis Spinbait 90. Here's a nice spotted bass to get things going. Come on. Come on, baby. I'm going to go for the boat flip. Oh, there we go. Chunky one. Yeah, right in the corner of the chompers. Yeah, baby, not bad. Just under 2 pounds. I'll take her. Let's get it started with the gear you need to use on this technique. All right, now when it comes to throwing the Spinbait 90, this technique is called spy baiting. I like a crankbait rod, but I don't like a big crankbait. I don't even like a medium heavy. I like a medium power rod. I'm not talking about a moderate's the action. I'm talking about a medium power rod. This is not a medium heavy. I need a decent length handle, and I prefer at least 6'6" to 7 foot. The longer you can get it, honestly, the better. You're trying to make long casts with this spin bait to get out there and cover more water. It's imperative that you have a moderate action. This rod bending all the way down in the middle. You want a very, very limber rod. And the reason why you want a limber rod is you have little treble hooks on this spin bait. It's imperative that you don't have too much pressure, which is going to tear it out. The most common retrieve with this is to cast it out, let it fall to the desired depth, and I'll talk about that depth in a second, and then to slow roll it back in. The Spinbait 90 is designed for a bait caster. Although you could still throw it on spinning, they made it a little bit heavier, a little bit larger for you bait casting gear guys to fish a spy bait more effectively with a slightly heavier line so you can wrench them out of heavier cover a little bit better. That being said, I like a 6 to 3. I don't want a 7-speed reel, and the reason why, in case I get impatient and start reeling a little bit faster, I know that bait's going to be going a little bit slower. Yes, you can tell yourself to slow down with the 7-speed or even faster, which is absolutely fine for you to fish that, so go ahead and do that if that's what you want to do. Now from there, what I like to do is I like to spool up about just under half my spool with about 30 to 50 pound braid. 30 is like your 10 pound diameter, and 50 is your 12 pound diameter. I have 12 on as a backing to this with 10 pound fluorocarbon tied onto that. I used a double uni knot, and I'll go ahead and put that illustration over the video for you here. I tied those together, and I have that fluorocarbon as the top line, which is referred to as a top shot, which is probably about 200 feet of fluorocarbon to that 10 pound fluorocarbon. Now the reason why fluorocarbon is dense, it's a little bit hard to work with, and it's heavier. The braid's light in the center. I now have a heavier outer edge of my spool, which is going to allow the revolutions to go a lot faster on my spool, therefore giving me a longer range cast. Is that imperative? No, it is not. You can fish it on 100% copolymer, mono, braid, fluorocarbon, whatever you want. This is strictly a suggestion for you to catch more fish and fish it more effectively. Come on, stay on. There's a big spot on the spy bait. Hopefully it's got good enough. Oh yeah, there's a 3.5 on the spy bait for you folks. Spinbait 90. You know, a lot of us Western anglers have known about, spy baiting for a long time, and Duo Realis has really stepped it up to make the primo baits in that category, and the Spinbait 90 is no different. Just look right there. I'm starting to dial them in now. That's a great quality spot. Doesn't matter where you're at in the country. That's a beautiful fish. Look how thick. Now let's talk about conditions for the Spinbait 90. It looks very similar to a jerkbait, and I want to talk about kind of when to fish this and where it applies into your bass fishing arsenal. A lot of time you're throwing a jerkbait in that colder, clear water, and that's also the same time for this. Cold water, clear water, it doesn't put off a ton of displacement. It needs to be seen, so that clear water, it excels, but the thing is, this drops down. You count this down to your desired depth, where a jerkbait, a lot of the time you're capped out, 10, 12 foot deep. You're not getting down there. A crankbait, you're not getting down there. But with a spin bait, you can count it down and get all the way down. So how does this apply? It's simple. It's pretty darn heavy. This bait is going to drop down there. This is the bait casting version, but you could easily fish this on a spinning rod too with like 6 or 8 pound fluorocarbon and be absolutely fine. So the times I like to fish this is when I'm fishing deeper structure that I can't get a jerk bait down to, or if there's a lot of minnows in the area, or the water's super cold. This is where this bait excels. This little prop on the front and little pop on the back, prop on the back are super subtle. The bait looks very realistic. You can count it down and you're gonna slow roll it right through those fish, and it's very hard for them to lay off. So prime conditions, bright and sunny, you're not gonna be wanting to fish this shallow. Rarely. Early in the spring, when it's bright and sunny, sometimes the bass will come and actively feed a little bit more shallow. Sometimes later in the fall, if you're fishing for largemouth, if they're keyed into bait, they will be shallow, but if they're not keyed into bait fish, more than likely they're gonna be down deeper. Deeper ledges, deeper walls, deeper humps out in the middle of the main lake, deeper ledges off of main lake points. So these are all things you wanna keep in mind when targeting those bass around with the Spinbait 90. Get that net. There we go, nice spot. There we go. All right, guys, I'm gonna explain what I just did here to get this spot on that spinbait. Oh, got him just on the outside of the mouth. Let me get him off for you. Send him on his way. So, if you look off to out in front of me here, that's a nice one. If you look off out in front of me here, you're gonna see that this is an island. And out in front of this island, there's a hump. So, if you see me throw this bait in, it's gonna fall. It's gonna drop down about a foot per second. There's a hump right here that's 32 feet deep. So what I did is I made my cast out there. I reeled it up somewhat, right over that hump. I know it's about 20 feet off of there. And from here, I counted down to about 20 seconds on pulling line out of my spool and allowing it to free spool. Once I got down close enough at 20 seconds, I knew I was probably within a foot of the top of that hump. I just slow rolled it all the way in and whammy ate it. At that point, I leaned on him real fast and landed that fish. Now, let's say I was to cast out there. It lands on the surface. I count to 1 and I start reeling it in. That bait's only a foot or two under the surface max. These fish were 32 feet deep down off a hump out in front of this. Do we really think a fish is gonna run up 30 feet to grab this bait? On rare occasions, they will. 9 times out of 10, no, they won't. So you have to utilize this. I'm gonna show you how to look at your fish finder, how to look at a chart plotter, how to look at Navionics, and spot these areas, these deeper offshore stuff that these spotted bass, smallmouth, and largemouth move up onto in main lakes during the winter time, or these deeper ledges on these points during the winter time when the lake's clear, early spring when the lakes are clear and the water is cold. So let's check that out. Okay, so I'm positioned right up here with the boat. I'm right off of this main island. The big island that's actually sticking off the water is up here, and you can see the corner of that point leading down here into 70 plus feet of water. Now that 30 feet I'm talking about right here, you can see that coming up. See those lines closer together? It's tapering up, and you can see the top of that point right there, the top of that hump is in 36 feet of water. When you find stuff out like this, out on main lakes, in the winter time or in the spring when it's real clear, early spring, which is still considered winter, January, February, you know, early, a lot of the time spotted bass, smallmouth, and largemouth will stack up on key stuff like this. The same thing, you move up to another point under the water, you can see this big finger out right here, see this faster tapering stuff? Shallower water, well, it's 93 feet. Let's say hypothetically this was 20 feet. And then it dropped down to like 50 feet right there. You can see those lines faster together. That's a real quick contour for them to come up, get a bite to eat, and drop right back out. So those are good target areas for a spinbait. So when I talk about main lake points, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit on here, okay? We're out here on Lake Comanche. This is a big, massive lake. Now you see this point right here in front of my thumb? I'm gonna zoom in right here. That is a big point. This is a main lake point. And see all these black lines right here? This means it's a faster contour. A faster drop off. When the lines are really concentrated, it gets deep quick. Look at this. This is probably 20 feet from 30 to 62 in about 20 feet. So that is a fast drop off. That's good wintertime targets for spy baiting. Now, if you look back in here, you see these lines, how they're farther apart? That means this is all the same depth through this area. Look right here, the lines are farther apart, 65, 65, 66, that whole area. That's a flat. They don't want to be on that stuff, they want to be on that faster taper. Let's look over by this point. See this? These lines are spread apart, but the lines are concentrated right here on this point. This is going to be a higher percentage area for you to target. So check your chart plotter, get a Navionics chip, or download it on your cell phone, and you'll be grateful you did. Now, I also wanted to show you the Spinbait 90 on a spinning setup. And the reason for this, the bait caster, yeah, you can use a little bit heavier line than a spinning setup and horse them a little bit harder. But on a spinning setup, you also have some advantages. Let's say hypothetically 50 feet out in front of me, I have that hump. As it lands, I can 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, and I can count that bait down versus a bait caster where I would strip some off. Or what you can also do, which is really nice with a spinning rod, because when it drops down, you know you're right on top of the target, and you know if you go tight line, it's going to pendulum back to you. If you throw it and you engage your clutch to where it's locked, it's going to pendulum back to you. And the really cool part about a Spinbait 90 is when it does pendulum back to you, it's not leaning, it's holding perfectly level and penduluming to you, which makes this extremely deadly. Let's say you have a bridge, okay, and the big legs of the bridge are going down to the water. Let's say there's a big leg of a bridge right here. I can cast it up past it, like 10 feet past the legs of the bridge, and I'll close my bail, and I'll let it pendulum past those big bridge columns. Now, that could be extremely deadly. So I can fish the first 10 feet. I can count 1, 2, click over, let it pendulum, fish the first 10 feet. I can make that same cast, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, click over, fish that next water column, count down a little bit farther the next time, and I can keep fishing different sections effectively, and the line's tight, so when they do hit it, I have tension, and those treble hooks will dig in and hook that fish for me. Now, a lot of people look at the Spinbait 90 and they're like, oh, that's only a bass lure. Well, today I've caught rainbow trout, I've caught crappie, I've caught bass. Any predator species is going to eat this. It looks like a minnow. This thing's really high quality. When you retrieve, it just slowly rocks like a wounded minnow. As these little props spin around on there, it's going to attract a heck of a lot of fish. The whole key is fishing it in that colder, cleaner water. This is November here in Northern California. Our water temperature right now is roughly 62 degrees. I fished this thing in the upper 40s and caught great spotted bass and great smallmouth. I find this works from, I like in the winter, once I can start seeing about 7 foot deep or more, I really like to start to utilize this, especially on a slick day like this. You look at the water behind me, it's slick, calm, it looks very, very natural, moves subtle, and it's hanging right in that strike zone in front of those fish, which is going to encourage them to strike. It's not coming by foreign at 100 miles an hour. A little dirtier water for that's always key. But the Spinbait 90, guys, if you got it, make sure to try it. You're going to love it. And make sure to send us some pictures at Lucky Tackle Box on Facebook, Instagram. Make sure to like this video and check out all the other Lucky Tackle Box videos with Travis or myself. We greatly appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you next time.